Salah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today with us, man. And I'm very, very excited for your presentation. Let me introduce Salah, okay? Salah has worked with Feature, okay? He started there in November 2021 as performance marketing consultant. Prior to Feature, he worked in Yahoo and WeGo. And here, the most important part, which I love, Salah, as well, the fun fact. Before moving to Berlin to join Feature, he lived in Dubai for 8 years. I'm very, very jealous, Salah, very jealous. Salah, welcome, everybody. Let's give Salah a big welcome. We're looking forward to your presentation, and thank you very much again, Salah, for joining us today. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thanks, David. And hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to take part in this event today. I'm really excited to watch the rest of the talks as well over this upcoming week. So yeah, as David mentioned, I've been working in performance marketing for quite a while now. And I joined Feature, where I'm really lucky to work with some of the smartest and coolest people in the industry. And actually, fun fact, tomorrow is my 1-year anniversary with Feature. So I'll definitely be celebrating. All right, so today we'll discuss some do's and don'ts when growing your app in the age of privacy. All right, so let's start with setting the scene a little bit and how the age of privacy looks like. Well, a few years ago, performance marketing looked much different and privacy was not much of a concern. And because of IDFA, we had full visibility on campaign performance and full targeting capabilities. However, there has been a valid concern about user privacy, which is a good thing for users, but it's a lot of work for us marketers, which brings us to an era where Apple has obviously introduced the privacy framework and the famous SKAd network. Google is set to follow with a privacy sandbox for Android, but the good news is that it's expected to be less severe than Apple's. Also, we have heard about Google plans to phase out the third-party cookies from Chrome browser, and of course the GDPR, which was introduced in 2018. So this to say that there's a clear pattern in the shift towards a more privacy-centric ecosystem. But what does it mean for app marketers? Well, two things. First, the ability to target users and the ability to measure. Now, on the measurement front, we can be optimistic and things will improve. I'm sure that we all heard about the new SKAd network 4.0, which obviously is a step in the right direction. On the targeting, though, there is an interesting shift towards less control over targeting. So if we consider Google App Campaigns and Meta's Advantage Plus app campaigns, and even TikTok, they released smart performance campaigns or announced it a couple of weeks ago. Even beyond app campaigns, if we look at Google pushing more for broad keywords over phrase and exact. Again, there is a pattern for targeting, which seems to be reducing over time, regardless even of privacy. Okay, with that in mind, today we'll have a chat about some considerations when growing your app, and we'll try to keep it top level and as strategic as possible. So kicking off with creatives, with the limitations that we observe on targeting, creative is arguably the most critical component to campaign success, especially on social channels, because on social platforms, there's a lot of organic content, and in order for your ads to be pushed efficiently, your ads has to stand out. So you should dedicate more time and effort to optimizing your ad message and have a goal of unlocking a creative hit. A creative hit is simply a creative that's able to achieve your desired KPIs while maintaining a sizable chunk of your ad spending. So naturally, in order to find this creative hit, you need to keep on testing. And I recommend to start testing horizontally, which means test unique concepts first within your creative, and then move to testing vertically, which is iterating on the best performing concepts. Now, a bit more on testing. Don't leave your campaigns to run on autopilot. This is a common mistake, and always test stuff. This applies to creatives, of course, so make sure to diversify your creative approach, be bold, take risks, and try different approaches. For example, at Feature, we use the PET model, which you can see on the screen here. It's a psychology-driven framework that that helps produce more effective and engaging ads. And it's a really cool model to kickstart the creative brainstorming process. PET stands for persuasion, emotion, and trust. Now, a couple important considerations when you're testing creatives. First, be realistic with the number of tests that you're running, depending, of course, on the available resources that you have internally and the budget, your testing budget. Because overloading your teams with countless creative tests will impact your quality of production. So maintain a fine balance there. And of course, if your budget is too limited, that means you're spreading your testing budget too thin. Also, when you're setting up your creative reporting, align internally first on which KPIs you have to you want to look at, because otherwise looking at dozens of KPIs will make it confusing and it will make it really hard to make a decision. Also, very important, make sure to have a scoring system for your creative wins in order to identify them quickly. Also, decide on what dimensions you want to be analyzing. Now, dimensions are stuff like asset type. Is it a video or a static? And the conversion tactics you're testing. Also, video length and so forth. This will help you find patterns when you're analyzing the data, and it will help you to zoom in and out from one single creative to an overarching dimension. Now, some best practices that we learned along the way is first, separate your tests from your evergreen, especially if you have creative hits. Don't mix both in the same ad group, and watch out for creative fatigue. Don't just assume that your creatives are gonna work forever. Also keep in mind, especially when creating videos, that the user attention span is just getting shorter. So make sure to grab attention within 3 seconds. And don't run the same creative everywhere. Make sure to adapt your creatives to the different platforms. A good example is Facebook and Twitter. Don't rely on sound because your creatives might play on mute. Also, make sure to have a clear call to action and don't have a vague message in your creative. Now, beyond creatives, of course, consider testing different things. Test new channels, for example. Test new geographic locations if your business is open for multiple markets. And generally, it's a good practice to keep a testing budget available at all times. Okay, user-generated content. Now, UGC has become obviously an important part of the creative strategy, mainly for paid social because of the increase in popularity of content creators and also because of the increase in popularity of short video formats, such as TikTok and Snapchat and Insta Reels. And from our experience, UGC works very, very well. However, turning UGC around can be quite challenging compared to the other creative types because, well, it takes a lot of time and effort to source these creatives. So some sources that you could consider are TikTok Creator Marketplace and collaborating and reaching out to content creators. And the interesting one is actually internal resources. So actually the example that you see on the screen here, this is a campaign that we ran with Hallow, which is a prayer and meditation app from the US early this year. And the person you see on the screen is actually Evan, the marketing manager at Hallow. So that's a really good example of using internal resources. And I have to say that this creative has worked extremely well. Okay, next up, don't underestimate user retention. User retention is obviously important, but it's becoming even more important now that it's becoming more difficult to acquire new users. So this can be achieved by analyzing the user journey from onboarding to conversion and optimizing it by understanding where churn happens and by reducing the friction as much as possible. Onboarding specifically is very important because when a user downloads an app, they are skeptical and they are ready to delete it if it didn't meet their expectations or if the onboarding process was just too confusing. So make it simple and personalize it as much as possible. Also be smart about reactivating dormant users by carefully planning when and what you're going to be communicating with them via email or push notifications. Also tweak your approach for iOS versus Android. So for example, for iOS, make sure to assign enough budgets to pass the privacy thresholds. So for example, 88 installs a day for iOS, and generally opt for broader targeting for iOS. While Android could be utilized for more creative and audience testing, and you could implement the learnings to your iOS campaigns. Also keep in mind for iOS that there are more data delays, especially for TikTok. We saw a lot of data delays with TikTok for days in some cases. Also, retargeting is obviously very limited nowadays for iOS, so test retargeting users who engaged with your content on social channels. Next, explore blended metrics and uplift analysis. Now, organic uplift simply represents the correlation between organic and non-organic installs, and it's used to measure how many additional organic users will install your app as a result of a certain paid activity. Now, blended metrics, on the other hand, simply means looking at total results. And it's important to, it's an important metric to look at, however, from more strategic perspective. It's not really very useful for day-to-day operations. Now, there are a couple of reasons why these are very important. First is because driving paid traffic will likely result in an increase in the App Store ranking, which is actually an interesting area for your ASO and paid teams to work together. Also, because of difficulties in measurement, whether it's a difficulty due to privacy or due to a channel that's in nature hard to attribute, such as brand or influencer marketing, but also because the user behavior doesn't necessarily follow the design path. We can't really expect all users to see an ad on Facebook, click, convert. People follow different paths. Someone might see your ad, they'll remember it later, they'll search your name on Google or whatever, and they'll download the app. So looking at blended metrics and organic uplift will take care of that. Next up is optimizing for lifetime value. Lifetime value is very important because it provides a realistic approach compared to looking at immediate results, such as looking at the conversions that you get on day-to-day. Now, looking at immediate results doesn't necessarily represent the real value that you're getting out of the paid campaigns. A very good example is subscription apps. You have users who are subscribing for months, maybe, or years, and looking at lifetime value will give you a better idea. So lifetime value helps you with better marketing budget allocation. It also helps you with more accurate basis for cost per acquisition. So make sure to understand your lifetime value, and very important to look at different cohorts. So your lifetime value per country, for example, per channel, per device, and combinations of all. Next, maintain a dynamic budget allocation. So this is a key factor to the success of your media plan. Always evaluate your budget allocation and create a framework to shift budgets based on the results and unit economics that you're getting across different dimensions. Now, if you want to take this a step further, explore media mix modeling, which is a framework to determine the optimal allocation of media spend across different channels. The good thing about media mix modeling is that it removes bias and guesswork, because budgeting typically uses guesswork and experience. Media mix model takes care of that. And I find this concept actually fascinating because we marketers tend to look at media channels in silos. Like we often look at Facebook. Facebook is working well, Google, not so much, etc. But in reality, a user takes multiple touch points before finally converting. So the media mix model evaluates how different channels work together. And it will be actually very, very interesting to see how the modern media mix models develop in the near future. It's actually not a very new concept, but it's becoming more important in the privacy context. Also focus on tactical approach and urgency triggers, because in reality, people are not always on buying mode. They are not in a hurry and they tend to procrastinate. However, when something is urgent, people are more likely to act on it, even if this urgency is artificially created. Think about when you're looking to buy a flight ticket, for example, and you see a tag that says 4 seats remaining. That creates urgency. So users generally try to grab a good deal. No one is looking for a cheap price, but it's all about price to value ratio. So convey this in your ad message. Okay, I believe by now that Apple Search Ads is already one of the primary, if not the primary paid channel for most apps in terms of iOS acquisition, which means that it's getting more important to focus on efficiency with ASA, especially that competition is increasing. But I want to mention custom product pages because it's something that we've been testing recently and we have seen some really interesting results. CPPs are a great way to optimize for higher conversion rates for both ASA and actually for Meta iOS campaigns as well. Now, pro tip when working with CPPs, minimize your effort, customize the first 3 screenshots, and don't worry about the rest. The first 3 screenshots are enough. And also diversify your testing approach, so test different USPs, different products, if you have any timely sensitive offer, and of course, your ASA semantic ad groups. Okay, and finally, this is also important, explore growth opportunities beyond paid media. So stuff like content marketing, endorsement marketing, sponsorships, organic social, for example. So here we can see an example from a TikTok video that might be an endorsement, I'm not sure, but this piece of content, it went viral with over 200,000 shares, not impressions, 200,000 shares. So these mediums, in some cases, they could be as efficient or even more efficient than paid campaigns. And something that's related to content marketing, always develop a marketing calendar because it will help you map your key marketing activities throughout the year, and it will help you to plan ahead of time and to avoid last-minute initiatives. It will also allow you to capture the moment of attention of users because people are typically more likely to engage with major events or seasons or even trends like social media trends, especially that brands, they sometimes get really invested into their own agendas and they forget about what's actually happening in the real world. A very good example that I saw a couple of years ago, actually a few years ago, is from a travel app that released a piece of content around the time where the new iPhone was released. And this iPhone was quite expensive at the time, at least. It was around $1,000. And there was a lot of talk on the social media about the new iPhone being expensive. And this travel app released a piece of content saying, here's some travel ideas that you can do, or your dream trip that you can achieve for less than $1,000. It caught some attention because it joined the moment or the conversation. Thanks again for joining. I hope that you found it interesting. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Don't be shy. And I'll hand it back to David.
Salah, thank you very, very much. That was very, very insightful. As you can see from the chat, I think a lot of people got a lot of insights out of that, which is what we're here for. So you know what? Thank you very much, Salah. Thanks a lot for being a part of this. We are very, very grateful that you took some time out to present with us today. Appreciate it.